So it seemed like Meech and Terry finally got what they were after. Although both men wanted to be the kings of Detroit, the journey and path that they were on led them to different directions, but both of them will definitely have to look over their shoulder, one in Atlanta and one in Detroit. So the days where they were hustling under Pat, Big L and K9 were long gone. They were connected to Cena, the Colombian Connect, so they were ready to take it to another level with their organization. But first, they had to handle a few loose ends before Meech made his way to ATL. Now Meech figures out Lamar killed Monique and he wanted revenge, and he certainly got his revenge, but just not in the way we would have thought. Now despite everything, Meech was still backing B Mickey, and he also had to tie up that loose end, and he thought he did when he brought back a witness from season 1. But when B Mickey's gun gets caught up in a murder committed by Kevin, and when Sterling saw him speaking with Detective Jin, Meech decided enough was enough. He had to cut B Mickey out for good. We then saw Meech head off to ATL, with Terry remaining in Detroit, but this game never lets you forget about your past, and that was the case for both Meech and Terry. Now elsewhere, Charles and Lucia's marriage seems to be over, and Lamar is still with us, kind of. So will Meech regret not killing Lamar yet again? Now ever since Meech and Terry were kids, they've been running when they tried to make it home before the streetlights came on. They were then running from the cops, which then turned into them doing the chasing when they got into the game. But when you're continuously looking over your shoulder, you're bound to take off your eye off someone you love, and that's what happened with Monique. Detective Brian and Jin found Monique's body at the car wash where Meech and Terry had been cleaning their cash, and it was normal for Meech to blame himself. He always told Monique he was against the idea of tag teaming against Lamar, but we do have to remember, she made the decision to take Lamar out because she knew she was his weakness. But regardless, Zoe and Tiara now grow up without her mom, something which broke Lucia's heart later on when she heard the news. But Meech knew, if they were to expand in their business, Lamar had to go. Throughout the whole season of season 2, Meech and Terry have been trying to figure out ways to get rid of Lamar, but they were never able to come up with a plan, and other issues with their organization and snitches didn't help either. But he knew Lamar had to go one way or another. He'd killed countless of soldiers, and on another day, he could have even killed Lucille. Now Meech didn't exactly kill Lamar, but he did give him to the streets. But with Monique dead, Lamar was completely off the rail, and Alvin knew he was a problem. He's been a problem for Alvin ever since the beginning of season 2, from dropping bodies, Blackie, and he knew Lamar was someone who was just way too unpredictable. So while he was seeing a body, a clone of himself, who happened to be Alvin, he gave him some crack rock. And we all know what happens to drug addicts when they get their first taste. We've seen it plenty of times in Snowfall. But this was actually a plan from Meech. We see him with a gun to Lamar's head, and when Lamar tells him to pull the trigger and basically put him out of his misery, but Meech knows that would be too easy. Instead, he gives him the slow death, crack rock, which is addictive on a different level to what Lamar's ever had before. So as season 2 comes to a close, he gave Alvin some cash and told him make sure he stays this way. So Lamar may be still with us, but he's in the streets. He's a crackhead looking for his next hit. Now I do have to say, Meech made a mistake in season 1 when he never took the second shot to make sure Lamar was dead. And has he made yet another mistake? Was it a mistake in not finishing Lamar? Now in terms of Meech and Terry's business, his vision has seen them go from working under Pat to creating the BMF. He's also been able to unite crews and even set up a link in ATL. But there were still a few loose ends that needed to be addressed, and Detective Brian was one of them. But he had K9 in an interrogation room who was happy to sing on everybody apart from Meech and Terry. But Meech and Terry were none the wiser. They knew he could be snitching on them for all they knew, but leaving Detroit wasn't an option. What was an option was going after the guy who was coming after them, Detective Brian. At the end of episode 9 on the rooftop, they knew that they had to stop Brian, and they did so by finding the witness that Brian had disappear in season 1. Now he was the same man who recognized Brian snatching J-Mo, so Meech wanted B Mickey's gun that Brian had in his safe dropped off to B's house in 1 hour, but that gun was nowhere to be found, and the person who took the gun was Kevin. Kevin had to deal with this bully all season long, and despite Brian telling him that he needed to be strong, he took yet another beating, but this time around he had enough. He went into the safe where the combination was his birthday. He then took the gun, and although he said it was an accident, Kevin now finds himself in a whole load of shit because despite the gun having B Mickey's prints on it, they haven't got any solid evidence apart from Kevin committing murder. So he's facing the rap for J-Mo and Kato as well, and I really do feel sorry for Kevin. But we know Detective Bryant will do what he can, but his influence will definitely be limited because after his piece of evidence was at his home, he had to turn over his badge. But Detective Jin is still there for Kevin, and she'll do what she can. So we saw Jin going to B Mickey's place to try and get him to confess to J-Mo and Kato, so at least those bodies could come off Kevin, but B stood firm. Now regardless of him standing firm, watching his crib was Sterling, who of course told Meech earlier on in the episode he wasn't a fan of B Mickey the snitch, and although it may look like B was working with the police, he wasn't. But that was it for Meech. He wasn't to know B shut down Detective Jin. So before he went to Atlanta, Meech told him that he's dead to him. Now the issue with this is, Meech and Terry better hope B Mickey doesn't give Detective Jin and Brian what they want. Although he would be snitching on himself unless he cuts himself a deal. But let's see if he's able to live with Kevin taking the rap for 2 murders he didn't commit. Now Meech and Terry may be boomed to the tomb, but this is how they were about to blow up. With Meech moving to Atlanta and Terry as King of Detroit, they were about to take over and still be boomed to the tomb just 700 miles apart. But business in Atlanta started off a little crazy. The same man Terry and Meech and Goldie ripped off earlier in the season at his gambling spot came in all guns blazing, but he was taken out by Meech and Goldie. Now this created another set of problems. He was working for someone called Robert Fulton, and he was his top earner. So Goldie realizes she needs to get out of ATL, but not without her sister. We all know how caring Goldie is, which is something they alluded to earlier when Meech was in ATL. She looks after hers, and she's been caring for Sandra, who's suffering from AIDS. But Sandra wants her machine to be turned off and her to leave without her because she can't do it anymore, and with Meech by her side, she says goodbye to her sister. Now Meech thought he was on his way to something bigger and better as he was looking for Rodney Green, but Remy is someone who will definitely keep Meech looking over his shoulder in ATL, and he will be one to watch in season 3. But it won't be just Meech who will be looking over his shoulder. Terry was given a warning earlier on when Boone's men interrupted Nicole's show, a warning that Terry should have heard, but he didn't. He is way too loved up over Markeisha to see the bigger picture, and that may just cost Markeisha her life, because we all know Terry will survive this, but will Markeisha? And will she leave 2 kids behind, just like Monique? Now elsewhere, when it comes to the Flannerys, Charles and Lucille's marriage has been on a downward spiral ever since season 1, but there's no coming back after Charles was caught with Maybelle, although we did see him try. He brought the family together for dinner, something we haven't seen for a very long time. Meech, Terry, Lucille, Charles and Nikki sitting around the dinner table as a family, but this didn't last long, and now Lucille's considering divorce, and for now, she wants nothing to do with Charles. Whether that changes, who knows, but that's a wrap for BMF Season 2, a season where Meech and Terry have elevated to another level with a new Colombian connect, but where they end the season in different cities. Meech has made a move to ATL, and Terry remains in Detroit, but both Terry and Meech will have to keep looking over their shoulders, Terry when it comes to Boom, and possibly Lamar, and Meech in ATL with Remy. You also do get the sense Detective Brian won't go down without a fight, but drop all your comments down below on the season finale of BMF Season 2, especially when it comes to Meech's decision to not kill Lamar and turn him into a crackhead instead. So drop all your comments down below, and of course if you are new to the channel then remember to smash the subscribe button because I will be bringing my Power Book 2 Go Season 3 Episode 1 breakdown later on. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.